I've previously mentioned Gary St Michael Nottingham in my vlogs, not least his observation that the persecution of witches was limited in Wales and the marshes. Well, I've recently come across a vlog of him speaking about his new book on witchcraft in the Welsh borders on Magical Toolbox UK. I was delighted to see him, as given his name, I wasn't entirely sure that he was a real person. But yes, he is, and really is an expert on occult in Shropshire and the marshes, and indeed a practitioner. I've extracted from his talk some aspects of occult in the marshes that I've not already mentioned in previous vlogs, and augmented these with my own research. As late as the 1930s, people in Shropshire and Mid Wales still tended to believe that their troubles resulted from a witch placing a curse on them. Written charms has existed for centuries to ward off evil and bad luck. The ones written around 1840 and 1839 in Shropshire and Mid Wales had a distinctive style of those found in other parts of the British Isles. They're slips of paper with closely written lines of text in English and Latin from the Christian tradition or astrological symbols. The texts often call on God, Jesus, the Holy Ghost, archangels and other heavenly powers to relieve the person named in the charms from witchcraft, evil men and women, and hardness of heart. At St Dogfund's churchyard in Llanrhaeadr-ym-Mochnant, near Oswestry, there is a gravestone to James Jones, dated 1829. Her husband Evan Jones appears to be quoting from Barrett's Magus on this stone. In Llanrhaeadr-ym-Mochnant, there is an account of a doctor and magician who wore a sheepskin hat and coat covered with sigils. He used a whip to draw protection circles when conducting magic. Gary seems to think this was Evans Jones. Gary found a charm originating from nearby Llanbodwell, derived from Henry Cornelius Agrippa, but found in Barrett's Magus. The Magus, or Celestial Influencer, is a handbook of occult and ceremonial magic, compiled by the occultist Francis Barrett, published in 1801. Its publication was responsible for a revival in medieval magic across the UK. Although close by from Llanrhaeadr, Gary found a protective charm coated in a blood-soaked sock derived from Ebenezer Sibley, a key to physics and occult sciences. Ebenezer Sibley, 1751 to 1799, was an English physician, astrologer and writer on the occult. Gary found a charm in the National Library of Wales and local libraries in Mid Wales. This contains elements, in particular a wheel annotated with astrological symbols from Reginald Scott, The Discovery of Witchcraft. Despite the book having been intended as an exposé of witchcraft, it had a major influence on witchcraft in the UK. In fact, this has resonance with my view that the Abrahamic religions created witchcraft, more so than responded to it. Although the charm itself is copied from the periodical entitled The Straggling Astrologers in 1824, edited by Robert Cross Smith. But this failed to receive enough subscribers and the periodical had to be discontinued after a few issues. Smith collected the issues of the failed periodical in a volume entitled The Astrologer of the 19th Century in 1824. James Morris, a blacksmith of Cumbelan near Llanidloes, wrote a book of grimoires contained in the National Library of Wales. It's a handwritten copy of Solomonic spells and seals that were transcribed by Fred Hockley. Frederick Hockley, 1809 to 10th of November 1885, was a British occultist and scryer who was a London-based freeman and member of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia. Evans Griffiths was a Dyn Hibis from Llanrhaeadr-ym-Mochnant. In many areas of England as Wales, if people experienced a run of misfortune, as well as, or instead of, consulting a doctor or vet, they might go to a conning man, Dyn Hiblis in Wales, who would diagnose their problem, just as I do today in Java. There are some surviving accounts of what would happen when a client went to consult a Dyn Hiblis. The Dyn Hiblis would first engage the client in conversation to establish the nature of the problem that was causing concern, and would then withdraw to another room to consult their books. There would usually be a collection of almanacs, astrological charts, and magic texts such as the Key of Solomon. In the mid-1920s, a miller from Merioneth visited the well-known Dyn Hiblis, even Griffiths of Llanrhaeadr-ym-Mochnant, to stop his sister's relationship with an unsuitable man. Griffiths wrote a charm to stop her speak to that ex and put a stop to it at once. On this occasion, the charm did not work, and the couple were married in 1927. John Thomas was a Methodist minister in Montgomery who resigned and moved to Cheshire to develop his own occult system. As the robber's grave is in the Church of Wales of St Nicholas, we cannot blame this for his waywardness. There is evidence of his wife using curses for the harvests of local farmers in Montgomery. Adopting the pseudonym Cherubel, he published numerous books and was editor of several esoteric periodicals. He published a monthly magazine called The Occultist, which was popular across Europe. The Symbols and Degrees of the Zodiac was first published and used as a series of articles in Alan Leo's Astrologer magazine over a 3-year period starting in December 1890. In 1906, he published The Psychology of Botany, Minerals and Precious Stones. His book, Degrees and Zodiac Symbols, was co-authored with a much younger mystic and astrologer, Sephiralial Dr. Walter Gorm Old, was published in 1907. He published a grimoire with detailed descriptions of plants and sigils. John Harry's 1785 to 1839 of Panchoy, Llandovery, was known as the Wizard of Court i'r Cadno. John Harries became a Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, where he lectured. A tall man of 6 feet 2 inches, he was described as having mutton chop whiskers, a wide mouth and straight nose, short dark hair and blue, wistful, thinking eyes. He was greatly respected, especially by people in desperation, and indeed lunatics were brought to him from far and wide as Pembrokeshire and Radnorshire, that he might heal them. Indeed, he seemed to have power over them, although his treatment was somewhat unorthodox and involved taking the patients to the bank of a river or pool, whereupon he would fire an old flint revolver, with the effect that the startled patient would fall into the water. Herbs and bloodletting were also part of the cure. He had the power to charm away pain, and it's no wonder that people assumed that he was in league with the devil. It soon became evident that John had healing abilities that extended beyond anything that could be learned from medical school. He gave excellent advice for anyone who was troubled in mind or body, showing an uncanny knowledge of the patient's past and their future. He was a kind, compassionate man who was eager to provide help for the increasing number of people who sought him out. John made no secret of the fact that his skills arose from the study of astrology, as well as hidden knowledge he'd learned from the spirits. On a certain day every year, John and one of his disciples would go into the woods, far from any human contact. There John would make a clearing and draw a circle on the ground. He raised a wooden post in the middle of the circle and placed upon it a large book sealed with 7 locks, which he chained to the post. His disciples entered the circle, and with instructions to carefully report everything they heard and saw. Then John opened the book, which was written in some strange unknown language, and chanted long sections of it. All of this, it was said, was done to summon the spirits who would give him such miraculous powers. One day 2 farmers were robbed on their way home from Swansea Market. One of them went to Cwrtacadno for help in finding the culprit. Harris asked if the man he knew would know his horses and wagon if he saw them again. The puzzled farmer said yes, of course he would. Harris then took him into the adjoining room and instructed him to look into the mirror hanging on the wall. When the farmer did so, he saw his horses and wagon standing on the road leading from the market. Inside the wagon, he and his friend were sleeping. A third man, whom the farmer instantly recognised, was helping himself to the sacks and money bag. From studying his own horoscope, Harris believed that he would die violently on a particular day in 1839. After dinner on what he believed to be his fatal day, he immediately went to bed, hoping that way to cross his planet. Alas, during the night he was awakened by cries that the house was on fire. He had no choice but to go downstairs and to help fight the flames. As he was climbing a ladder to throw down water on the roof, he slipped and fell to the ground, where he died on the spot. Thomas Light, 1805 to January 1890, of Hierarchical, was purported to use magic. He could influence the outcome of cockfights, advise on love affairs, cure the sick, and recover stolen property. He was said to battle the devil in the lanes and byways around Hierarchical on cold winter's nights. It's believed that his death was brought about by rival wizard Jack of the Wheelmoors, an area to the north of Telford, who used charms and divination to end a long-standing feud between the men by enchanting him to death. Anna Kingsford, née Annie Bonus, 16th of September 1864 to 22nd of February 1888, was an English anti-vivisectionist, theosophist, a proponent of vegetarianism, and a women's rights campaigner. Kingsford was interested in Buddhism and Gnosticism and became active in the theosophical movement in England, becoming the president of the London Lodge of the Theosophical Society in 1883. In 1884 she founded the Hermetic Society, which lasted until 1887, when her health declined, but this was a forerunner of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. She received insights in trance-like states in her sleep. These were collated from her manuscripts and pamphlets by a lifelong collaborator, Edward Maitland, and published posthumously in the book Clothed with the Sun, 1889. She died aged 41 and was buried in the churchyard of St. Eater's in the 11th century church in Atcham by the River Severn, her husband's church, although I'm uncertain that she ever visited Shropshire. Alexander Ayton, 28th of April 1816 to the 1st of January 1909, was a British Anglican clergyman with an interest in alchemy. He's generally thought to have been a member of the shadowy Society of Eight, founded in 1883. He became a member of the successor Order of the Golden Dawn. He was a supporter of the reforms of Arthur Edward Waite, which split the order as the Holy Order of the Golden Dawn and the Stella Matutina. He was for 5 years a curate of Open Gates, which already had a vicar who for some reason was unable to carry out his duties at the time. Walter Mosley of Builders Hall allegedly died from D abuse, which he used in his occult practices. Fred Cockley claimed that he used S magic and D's predating Aleister Crowley, whilst Fred Cockley himself was a regular visitor to Shropshire. I I'm struck by is the detail to which Gary is able to cast doubt on the myth of an uninterrupted tradition of witchcraft, as Margaret Murray, and indeed Wiccans, would have us believe. But much more to locate witchcraft in the Victorian revival of so many things, like folklore traditions, Morris men, Druids, Celtic legends, etc. Indeed, whilst Murray's witch cult, and indeed the myth of the Order of the Nine Angles, suggests that witchcraft survived in remote rural areas, such as the marshes, Gary suggests the opposite. That occult and high magic may have persisted in the cities and centres of learning. These led to a revival in what we've come to see as rural witchcraft. And notwithstanding that they may have merged with some elements of hedge magic, more properly described as herbalism. But what Gary so effectively demonstrates is that this revival almost certainly started in the cities, based on an interest in medieval sorcery and exotic religions, and then found its way to the rural backwaters like Shropshire and Mid Wales. And what also struck me was that the seeming sophistication of practices of the area, rather than, as I would have presumed, a dilation of ritual and beliefs as they traverse the hills and the mountains.